Hello, it's time for part 2 of music in our Humanities 101 class, part 2 in chapter 9. And we're going to look at the rest of the chapter and finish it up. And we're looking at the subject matter of music. And of course, what's very familiar to us is how music makes us feel. And we're really starting on page 231 where we left off last time. And in music, it's composed of sensations, emotions, passions, and moods. Not that we may feel like we need a definition, but the chapter covers that in its relationship to music. So emotions are those strong sensations felt as related to a specific stimulus. That means there's something specific that stimulates and creates a response, emotional response. Passions are when emotions are elevated to great intensity. And then moods, well, that's different because it may arise from no apparent stimulus. Sometimes you're in a good mood, you don't really know why. Sometimes you're in a bad mood, you're not really sure why. And someone says, "Hey, did you just wake up on the wrong side of the bed?" And you're like, "I don't know," and you're grumpy. But an emotion is to a specific stimulus. So that's just when they're going to use these terms in your book in relationship to music, and they're just thinking in specific ways, so they define the terms. And there's theories about that. There's musical theories as to what part music and feeling has to do with each other. On page 234, music apparently not only evokes feelings, that means creates some in you, causes you to feel some, but also reveals the structure of those feelings, or might even kind of reveal them in a different way. Formalists, here's the two ideas, formalist and expressionism. Formalists, that's the people who believe in formalism, they deny any connection of music with non-musical situations. They're just sort of all about the form, the structure, and it doesn't matter how it makes you feel. That's not important, whether it makes you, that's just not the point of it. It's for its own sake. It's not to say that it's mechanical, but it is just not really that important. That's a byproduct. Maybe it might make one person happy, another person sad. They're really emphasizing the structures. And they can be very complex. And so some of this music is very intellectual. And so you hear it and you're not really feeling anything. But that's not the point. Expressionists, though, are more into the importance of feelings, and that may be more where you find yourself, that composers communicate their feelings and the music evokes the feelings. If you think about this on the Voice and American Idol shows, you have certain judges that are really emphasizing the communication of the passion and the feeling and connecting with the audience, and that's more on the expressionism side. But then at the same time, they have to be accurate musically. They can't be pitchy and be off and things like that. That's that formalist side. And as I'm recording this, I remember last year was the first year they had Harry Connick Jr. on, and he would be more of, he wouldn't deny the feelings part, but he would emphasize the formalist connection part. He would emphasize those things, but it was to help their musicality and their musicianship. And so, you have that's one way of thinking about that different emphasis. But as far as the theories go, they're very separate. All right, a perception key that we're going to take a quick look at is on page 236, and it emphasizes and uses the Negro spiritual song "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot," and it talks about how it moves from this A to F. There, it says the tonal center of a composition in the key of F major is the tone F. It begins with the A and then goes to F, and it's they call it a weighty rest point. The melody is very tight, doesn't rise any higher than D or fall lower than a C, so it's very easy to sing. And then what you'll hear in the recording that I have is that it's what's going to change when it goes to the verse is it's going to get exuberant, and the pacing is going to pick up, and instead of going from A to F, it's going to go from A to C, even though it will obviously use Fs in there before. So let's take a look. Let's take a listen. Okay, it got ahead of me. Let me pick it up. This is a recording by Etta James, and I want to make sure we got the beginning. There's the A to the F. back to the F again. Now notice it said on there that the chord starts slowly, but now it's going to shift a little bit. Very simple there, but you see a very detailed analysis of the movements in the music on the bottom of 236 and to the top of 237, and how certain tones create stability and other ones make it unsettled. Some suggest completeness and some don't. You'd have to really sit and listen to this a long time to answer all the questions in the perception key. Maybe you can find it on YouTube and work your way through that, slow it down, or find another recording that you like better of it. Okay, so that's just a little example there. And then moving on to musical structures, it says the most familiar musical structures are based on repetition, especially of melody, harmony, rhythm, and dynamics. It's going to break this down. This is pretty complex, but I'm trying to help you with all that's in the book here. First of all, it talks about theme and variations. Remember we said that there was the Phantom of the Opera theme in the first video, right, on elements and how that theme, there's variations. So you have structures and they're labeling it A1, A2, A3, A4, A5. Okay, it's a variation, they give it the letter A. And they're going to use the example of the fugue. So there's no way to understand this apart from hearing it. So let's take a little. Okay, now we have this second little melody line. You hear how this other instrument's coming in and doing a similar sound of kind of melody line. It's getting more complex. If you look in your book on page 238, it kind of breaks down almost like a little outline, how the melody lines overlap. They've actually broken down the little tune Row, Row, Row Your Boat because it does that as well. So you have sort of a theme line and then it's varied and repeated. It sounds recognizable, all goes together, but it each has its different little sound and piece to it. Okay, that's just a little minute there of that. Okay, so that's when you've got the statement of a theme, and this time, the variations come and overlap. A rondo is very similar, but the way they break it down A, B, A, C, A, you see how there is a contrasting melody and then a repeat. So in a rondo, there is a theme and it's a variation, but it has a different pattern, and so there's a certain particular pattern of that. So let's see if we can listen to an example of a rondo. Yeah, no, this is a very fast one. I see that sounds a little different than the first one we heard. That sounds more similar to the first one. So A, B, A. Now I've got another variation on it. Gosh, it's kind of unbelievable how this little girl's playing. But she is playing a wonderful rondo here. And you hear variations. And then all of a sudden you hear something you sounds familiar, kind of like what you'd heard earlier. But it's the pattern that makes it a little different from than a fugue with its counterpoint. Okay. All right, so then moving along there, and the definition of a fugue is a specialized structure of counterpoint. That's the key word there, where the melody, statement, and the answer play back and forth. It's back and forth, back and forth. And if you can think about even just, when you do row, row, row your boat gently down the stream, merrily, 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 life is but a dream, and then you kind of have sing it in rounds, kind of the way that works. All right, another form is sonata form. So see, we're looking at forms first, and there's patterns and structures, just like in poetry, and formalists would just be emphasizing that, and you can see that that rondo may not have made you feel anything. It might give you a headache. I don't know. The fugue, there's some aspects of the fugue in the Phantom of the Opera, but it's certainly not limited to that, and has a lot of passion and feeling in it. The sonata form structure, it says on the bottom of 238, is that it has ABA. So they're using the letters of the alphabet to kind of represent similar components. The letters represent not just melodies, but the main parts. And we'll be looking at Beethoven's Eroica next anyway. Okay, we'll come back to that. Fantasia, we're not talking about Fantasia oh, I've lost her name already, from American Idol, but that word actually is a composition word, meaning unstable and unexpected musical structure. So that's a different one, and it's more like free verse. It sort of doesn't have a consistent pattern necessarily. Then you have the symphony, and they're really, really probably the most known. And it says it marks on page 240 one of the highest developments in the history of Western instrumental music. It's just like the achievement, the greatest achievement of musicians instrumentally, with the works of Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven, and Brahms. Just that's the crowning thing. If you can, in painting, it might be if you can do a Mona Lisa or a Michelangelo's, the David, something like that, or Rembrandt's realism. But in music, if you are a composer, this would be the height of achievement. It relies on harmony, so you have all these instruments, they all have to be going together. You see the picture of the symphony orchestra on page 240. You'll see some of that in some of the videos here. And they have different movements there and where they develop themes. We're just going to listen to one of Haydn's here because it's mentioned in your book. In the bottom it has the different movements, and then it has actually the kind of the note structure for parts of it, the first movement in your book. Now right now there's a couple instruments and they're playing the same thing. Well, they're all playing the same thing. It sounds like one big instrument, doesn't it? Okay, this is the first theme played by the strings. The top line, it says, is played by the first violins, second line by the second violins, third line by the violas, and the bottom line by the cellos. There you got those cellos there. There's your violins. Some of them are playing different things. You hear the different parts. And sometimes they're playing the same note, like if you can kind of see that on page 243 when it looks like all the lines look the same. And that says that bottom of 241 that Haydn's first movement starts off slowly and then it will get fast. So it has different tempos. And we're going to have to stop right there. I'm running out of time.